My name is Elias Vance. I was 45 years old, and on July 14th I died. It wasn't in some heroic blaze of glory. It was on the cracked, soot-stained floor of the Grand Central Transit Station during the evening rush. I was just a tired architectural drafter, trying to get home to my wife Sarah and our 2 kids, Noah, who was 15 and deep into his moody, brilliant phase, and little Lily, our 9-year-old whirlwind. Money was the constant, low-grade hum of stress in our lives. Sarah, a high school history teacher, and I were always running the numbers, trying to stretch my mediocre salary to cover the private school tuition we desperately wanted for Noah. That afternoon, I was rushing to catch the 5:42 train, my mind sketching out how I could convince my boss a new design software license was actually a cost-saving measure. I remember the smell of stale coffee and hot metal, the crowd surging around me. I had just stepped onto the escalator, reaching up to adjust my worn messenger bag strap, when the world pitched. It wasn't pain at first, but a sickening, lurching disconnect, like the gears in my skull had stripped. A moment later, a massive, blinding surge of pressure exploded behind my eyes, and my knees buckled. I felt myself crumple onto the metal grating of the escalator steps. The last thing I heard was a woman's sharp, terrified scream. "He's having a seizure, call a doctor." Then, the roaring darkness took over. The great stillness. The darkness wasn't the void I expected. It was more like the silence after a lifetime of constant, aggressive noise. I was floating, completely still, yet moving away from something. I looked down, and through a shimmering, translucent air I could see the chaos below. There I was, Elias Vance, crumpled on the unforgiving metal of the escalator. My briefcase popped open, blueprints scattered like fallen leaves. A young man in a transit uniform was trying to keep the crowd back while 2 others, one in a severe business suit, were administering CPR. My body was an object of pity, a sudden inconvenience in the rush hour frenzy. I felt a profound, almost ridiculous sense of calm. The frantic energy of the scene was utterly foreign to me, a movie I had walked out of. I tried to tell them, "I'm fine, just a little disoriented," but the thought evaporated before it reached my non-existent mouth. I was pure consciousness, weightless, observing my own emergency. Then the motion began in earnest. It wasn't a dizzying ascent, but a gentle, inexorable pull, like being drawn up a vast, warm river. The noise of the station faded, replaced by a sound that wasn't sound, a humming resonance that seemed to originate from my very core. The air around me thickened into a golden-white luminescence, growing steadily brighter, yet never hurting my sight. It felt less like light and more like pure, concentrated understanding. I was gliding through this tunnel of light when I heard the footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, a rhythmic beat not on a floor, but in the ambient silence. They were approaching me, and though logic dictated I should be terrified, a wave of such powerful peace washed over me that my thoughts stopped, suspended in the light. It was the feeling you get when you finally stop fighting a relentless current and simply let it carry you home. Kyrios, the guide. Then he emerged from the light as if he was the source of it. I knew, with a certainty that erased every doubt I'd ever harbored, that this was the Kyrios, the Lord, the guide, the source, the fundamental truth of the universe, made manifest for my human mind. He looked nothing like the stern, bearded figures in the stained glass windows of my childhood church. He was perhaps 6 feet tall, cloaked in a robe of deep indigo that seemed woven from twilight and starlight. His skin was the color of rich mahogany, and his hair, long and straight, was silvery white, shimmering with a light that had no shadow. But it was his eyes that stopped my heart. They were not just brown or blue, but deep, shifting pools of nebula and quiet stars, containing the weight of every moment of time. When he stood still, the universe didn't just quiet, it seemed to wait. Even my internal monologue, the persistent chatter of the tired architect, went utterly silent. The light that enveloped him was not bright or harsh, but soft and internal, glowing from his core like a supernova gently contained. He smiled, and the act of his smile was a physical sensation, absolute, unconditional safety. For the first time in my life, I wasn't worrying about a deadline, a bill, or a bad decision. I would have collapsed if gravity existed there. "Elias," he said, and his voice was not loud, not booming, but a pure vibrational tone, like the perfect resonance of a crystal glass. "Welcome. I have been watching you walk this way." I tried to speak, but the only sound I could manage was a ragged whisper of awe. "Kyrios," he nodded. Tears not of sorrow, but of the purest, unadulterated release streamed down my immaterial face. It was the joy of witnessing my son Noah win his first robotics competition, the relief of seeing Lily's radiant smile on the first day of school, the warmth of Sarah's hand in mine. "I have much to show you," he said, extending his hand. His palm was smooth, but at the very center I saw a small, faint mark, not a wound, but a permanent, shimmering scar, the signature of sacrifice, of a life lived fully in the broken world. I took his hand. It was not warm or cold, but perfectly resonant, and the light around us pulsed. Everything changed. The 7 realms of creation. We were no longer in the tunnel. We were standing on a vast plain of iridescent jade grass. Above us, the sky was not blue, but a swirling gradient of rose, gold, and sapphire. Flowers grew everywhere, displaying hues that defied the terrestrial spectrum. A pulsating magenta that felt like music. A silver blue that smelled like memory. "This is not a waiting room, Elias," Kyrios said, his voice echoing in the vast, silent beauty. "This is home, and I want you to see what your purpose truly is. The sculptors of life." The first scene was a field larger than any national park, yet intensely managed. But the people there weren't just gardening, they were shaping life. They wore simple, flowing clothes and had joyous, intent expressions. Their hands sunk into soil that glittered like pulverized emeralds. "You will be the sculptors of life," Kyrios explained. "Not as work, but as profound, joyful communion. Every seed you plant will grow with its own consciousness. Every flower you nurture will communicate with you in light and scent." I watched a woman, who looked maybe 60, yet radiated youthful strength, press a handful of shimmering dust into the ground. As she stepped back, a creature, not a plant, not an animal, but a beautiful floating spiral of crystalline light, sprouted, unfurled, and then hummed a complex mathematical equation that made me instantly understand a principle of quantum physics. The woman laughed, the sound as bright as the creature's light. "Will I tire? Will I have to worry about blight or drought?" I asked, remembering my constant futile battle against aphids in my tiny backyard. Kyrios smiled. "Your body here is a perfect vessel, Elias. Stronger than you can imagine, yet light and eternally rested. And here, matter obeys intention. You will not fight the soil. You will co-create with it." Due to the Dream Weavers. The scene shifted, and we were inside a boundless structure that seemed to be made of living liquid crystal and condensed gold light. The walls did not meet at right angles. They flowed and spiraled. Inside, people were creating things of impossible scale. Not houses, but landscapes, cities, and concepts. "You will be the Dream Weavers," Kyrios stated. "The constraints of your earthly physics, mass, gravity, budget, are gone. Every human soul is a boundless architect and artist, a reservoir of pure creativity never fully tapped. Here, you will paint with light, sculpt with sound, and write with the essence of truth." I watched a man, no older than 30, stand before a colossal blank space. He raised his hands, and from his fingertips flowed streams of pure, liquid color that instantly solidified into a vast, photorealistic mountain range, complete with a swirling, perfect moon. When he stepped back, a figure in the distance of the painting turned its head and smiled at him. "I was only a drafter, drawing other people's plans," I whispered. "I was never a true artist." "That was your limitation on Earth," Kyrios replied. "Here your hands will create what your soul has seen and what your heart intends. You will build bridges of pure thought and cities that sing." 3. The Chronologers. We moved to a massive circular space that felt like the quietest library in existence. But there were no paper books. Instead, countless spheres of glowing concentrated energy floated on shelves of pure light. People were reaching for them, and as they did, their entire being would be momentarily illuminated by a flash of deep, comprehensive understanding. "You will be the Chronologers," Kyrios explained. "Every question you ever had about the cosmos, history, life, and the nature of love will be answered here. Knowledge is not a burden to be memorized. It is a current that flows into you and becomes part of your soul's structure. I reached out, involuntarily, and touched a small, sapphire-colored orb. The moment my fingers brushed it, I was transported. I understood the exact moment and feeling of my great-great-grandfather's decision to leave his homeland for a new continent. It wasn't just a historical fact. I felt his fear, his hope, the cold in his hands, and the weight of the single coin in his pocket. It was an overwhelming flood of empathy and truth. "I understand how love works," I gasped, stepping back breathless. "It's the mechanism of the universe. There are millions more to understand," Kyrios said gently. "How the stars are born, why a mother's lullaby is the first echo of divinity, and the full, deep histories of every soul you ever brushed past on Earth." Fee, the harmonists. The next location was a spectacular, spiraling amphitheater, its ceiling soaring into an infinity of color. The air was thick with music, but it was more than just sound. It was the harmonious vibration of light, color, scent, and pure emotion, all blending into one divine, continuous performance. "You will be the harmonists," Kyrios announced. "Every voice, every note, every chord of being is perfect here. You will join the universal multi-sensory symphony, the song of eternal praise that never ends and never grows stale." Thousands of people were participating. Some played instruments of unimaginable design, lutes that emitted streams of liquid color, drums that beat with the rhythm of distant galaxies. But most were simply singing. Their voices merged into a sound so profound that every great piece of music I'd ever heard on Earth, Bach, Miles Davis, my son's amateur garage band, felt like a child's simple toy. I had always been terrified to sing, my voice flat, my lungs weak. But here, standing in the pure light, I opened my mouth and a tone of perfect resonant clarity flowed out, joining the glorious choir. It was my voice, yet it was strong, pure, and flawlessly in tune. My voice, it is beautiful, I managed, tears blurring the spectacle. "It always was, Elias," Kyrios replied. "You just couldn't hear its truth through the noise and self-criticism of your fractured world." V. The Soul Reunionists. We moved to a vast open plaza filled with light and laughter. People were mingling, embracing, and talking with an intensity that radiated pure, uninhibited joy and recognition. "You will be the Soul Reunionists," Kyrios said. "Here, there is real friendship without fear, jealousy, or pretense. You will meet those you knew and those you should have known. The little girl who died in the Great Fire of London will become your favorite conversational partner. The farmer from ancient Sumeria will teach you humility. Love does not divide, it multiplies." I watched a young woman run across the plaza and leap into the arms of an elderly, robust man. I somehow knew instantly that this was her great-great-uncle, a soldier who had died on a foreign battlefield 50 years before she was born. Their embrace was a fusion of pure, ecstatic love and recognition, a broken lineage finally made whole. "My family?" I asked, my heart contracting with a momentary pang of earthly worry. "Sarah, Noah, Lily. Will I see them again?" "They will arrive when their journey is complete," Kyrios assured me, his gaze gentle. "And your love for them will be deeper and purer than any earthly measure. You will not lose them. You will gain millions more to love. Your heart is infinite, Elias." 6. The reality designer's Kyrios led me to the edge of a great precipice. Below us, spread out in the distance, was not a city, but a cosmic canvas. Buildings were not static. They grew from the earth in geometric perfection. Rivers flowed with iridescent ink. People were working on what looked like impossible construction projects. "You will be the reality designers," Kyrios told me, his voice swelling with pride. "You will not only live in this creation, you will co-create new realms. You will build worlds for new souls to explore. Mountains that shimmer with wisdom, oceans whose currents tell epic stories, and forests where every leaf is a prayer." I watched a team of souls construct what looked like a bridge, not of stone, but of pure, condensed light. They didn't use tools. They shaped the energy with focused intention, molding it like clay. When they were finished, the bridge arched over a canyon, and as people walked across it, the light they were made of resonated, creating a shifting, three-dimensional aurora. "We can do that? Shape light and matter with our hands?" I asked, the architect in me reeling. "When your will is aligned with agape, with pure, selfless love, matter has no choice but to obey your command," Kyrios confirmed. "The limitations of the broken world are lifted. Your every thought here is creative." 7. The Inner Architects. Finally, Kyrios led me to a quiet meadow of pure, soft light. There were no bustling activities here. Souls sat alone, or in small groups, with expressions of deep, perfect peace. They weren't creating, learning, or singing. They were simply being. "And you will be the inner architects," Kyrios concluded. "You will have eternity to contemplate truth, to meditate on the fundamental structure of the divine, and to simply rest. No deadlines, no frantic rushing, no gnawing stress, just perfect, available peace." I sat down on the luminous grass. The crushing, lifelong weight of financial worry, professional disappointment, and parental fear instantly dissolved. For the first time since childhood, my mind was not a whirlwind of obligations, but a vast, silent lake. "This is the deepest rest," I murmured, my voice trembling with relief. Kyrios sat beside me. "Rest is not merely sleeping, Elias. It is the perfect alignment of your soul with its purpose. It is being exactly where you were meant to be, doing exactly what you were created to do, with the absolute assurance that it will never, ever end." We sat in that meadow of silence for an unknowable period of time. Then, Kyrios turned to me, his nebula eyes filled with love and a deep, gentle seriousness. "You have to return now, Elias," he said softly. The word "no" ripped out of me before I could stop it. "Please. I don't want to go back. I don't want to be tired all the time. I don't want to worry about money. I don't want to fail Sarah or the children anymore." Kyrios took my hand, his perfect, resonant touch a comforting anchor. "Elias, your soul's great design is not yet complete on Earth. Sarah still needs your strength. Noah needs your quiet pride. Lily needs your laughter. There are conversations you have not yet finished, and people who need to see the peace you are carrying. But I'm not strong enough," I whispered. "The world breaks me." "You will not be alone," he promised. "Everything you have seen here, all the joy, all the creativity, all the peace, you can carry pieces of it back with you. When you draw a line on a blueprint, remember the dream weavers. When you kiss Lily goodnight, remember the universal symphony. When the stress hits, remember this meadow of stillness." "Will I remember all of this?" I pleaded, terrified of losing the truth. "You will remember all you need," he replied. "And when your work, your true work, which is love, is complete, you will return. This is not a farewell, Elias. This is simply a pause. The return of the architect." Before I could speak again, the light began to draw away. The meadow, the city, the music, the scent of the iridescent grass, all faded into the shimmering golden white tunnel. I was moving swiftly, not away from heaven, but towards a distant, painful pinprick of reality. The pain hit first, a crushing ache in my chest and a blinding light tearing at my eyes. The roar of a siren replaced the harmony of the spheres. I heard a muffled voice yelling numbers. "He's back! Pulse is strong! We got him!" I tried to move and found my body weighted with what felt like 1,000 tons of lead. I opened my eyes to the terrifying fluorescent glare of an ambulance, the blurry face of a paramedic leaning over me. "Elias, you hear me? You were gone for nearly 11 minutes. You're okay now." 11 minutes. I had been clinically dead for 11 minutes. In that time, I had lived a lifetime of truth and creation in an infinity of light. At the hospital, they ran every test imaginable. The stroke, they said, had been massive. A brainstem attack that should have left me comatose or severely disabled. The neurologist, a young man with a weary face, shook his head. "Mr. Vance, your scans are clear. Your brain activity is normal. Medically, you should not be here talking to me. It's a miracle, a genuine textbook miracle." But I knew why. In the months that followed, my circumstances remained the same. Sarah still worried about the mortgage. Noah still battled his teenage anxieties. My salary was still tight, but I had utterly changed. When I felt the weight of the office, I would close my eyes and remember the inner architects, finding a core of stillness that no spreadsheet could disturb. When I worked late on a design, I wouldn't just draw. I would remember the dream weavers and infuse my blueprints with a sense of purpose and beauty that went beyond mere function. My designs became cleaner, bolder, more soulful. I began to teach my children the secret ways of heaven. I taught Lily to sing with color, showing her the humming magenta flower. I taught Noah that his mathematical genius was a step toward being a chronologer, understanding the fundamental language of existence. And you know what? Sometimes when I'm alone in the quietest hour of the night working a small sketch, I can almost hear a faint, perfect chord of the heavenly symphony. I started telling people about what I saw, not to preach, but to share. Some called it a hallucination, a surge of brain chemistry before death. I just smiled. I want you to know the truth. Heaven is real. It is not a place of boring, endless rest. It is the most creative, joyful, purposeful adventure you can imagine. You will learn and build and create and sing and love without limitation. You will finally become the inner architect you were truly meant to be. But here is the most important secret Kyrios showed me. You don't have to wait until you die to begin. Every time you choose peace over panic, every time you love without expecting reward, every time you create something beautiful out of nothing, and every time you find stillness in the middle of chaos, that is the Kyrios breaking through. That is a piece of the eternal arriving in your temporary world. Your life here is not a preparation for heaven. It is a practice run for eternity. The love you give, the beauty you create, the strength you find, it all matters. It is all setting the foundation for the worlds you will eventually design. So don't be afraid. Don't give up. Heaven is more wonderful than your greatest dream, and you are going to be magnificent there. But until then, bring as much of heaven to earth as you can. Trust me, it changes everything.